Yes, people, welcome to the 18th episode of the Backpacking Cycle. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about escaping a rut and the philosophy and the mindset you can use to kind of propel yourself out of a state of inaction and start getting your life towards a place where you want to be. So, like, if you're suffering with a lot of anxiety, depression, or if you're just very dissatisfied with your external scenario and your interior state of mind, then this is going to be the podcast for you, because I'm really going to dive into how you can flip the switch on being in a negative state of mind and hating your external environment to actually start gaining progress and momentum and start getting your life back on track and heading towards where you want to actually go. So, like, the first thing I want to say to you, if you are like really stuck in this, if you're stuck in a rut and you're stuck in this negative state of mind, is like, you are fully responsible and accountable for where you are now. And we are just an accumulation of the past choices we've ever made. And the younger us got us here. So we need to realize that to get to the future us and to get to a place where we want to go, we need to take full responsibility and accountability of the choices we make now. So taking accountability and responsibility is going to take away this victim's mentality. And I think sometimes and I used to do this massively when I was stuck with a lot of anxiety and depression, I would blame it on other things that aren't myself. And I'd get stuck in this very victim's mentality where I'd be like, oh, the reason I'm anxious is because like no one seems to understand me, or I hate my external scenario. Like, my parents should have made me move out when I was 18, because I was like 21, 22. I was still living at home, had a lot of anxiety, couldn't speak to women. I'd be like, oh, the only reason why I'm like this is because my parents never pushed me out, or I haven't got enough finances to go and move out on my own. And I was constantly putting my blame on the external environment. And I was really instilling this very like victim's mentality that was just keeping me still. And all it was doing was reinforcing this negative state of mind of like, I can't take control of where I am. But if you realize and you take full responsibility, for 100% responsibility for where you are, you can actually start realizing that, right, I'm here because of me. Like, there's no one else that has influenced me or has prevented me from getting towards where I wanted to go. I'm only here because of all the past choices I've ever made. And then once you realize that and you understand that, you can start making choices and you can accept where you are and move on with them, or like more optimism, and realizing that, like, I got myself in a bad scenario, now I can get myself in a good scenario. So that's like the first thing you need to do once you're stuck in this rut, is realize that, like, I'm here because of my past choices, and that's okay. I'm not in a good place right now. I'm not in a good state of mind, and that's okay. There is nothing wrong with that, but it is my responsibility to move forward, and I can take full freedom and autonomy over my choices to get to where I want to go. And the next thing is, use these negative emotions like anxiety and depression as like indicators. So I always thought, like, I used to really hate having depression, like, obviously, and I used to be like stuck in this like habitual state of mind going, oh, why am I so depressed for? I hate depression. Or I'd get anxiety about my anxiety, and all I was doing was reinforcing the anxiety or like suppressing the depression and making it worse. But when I truly understood, like, this depression is just kind of a symptom of the person I am, instead of the person I am being a symptom of the depression, it was more the depression was a symptom of the person I was. And if I chose to be someone else, the depression would go. And I kind of use that depression as like, oh, right, this is kind of an indicator that I'm not in a good place right now. And it's actually something needs to change. There's something deep inside of me. There's something in my subconscious that knows I need to take action. It's the same with social anxiety. I'd be like, I was socially anxious because I couldn't go out and speak to women, but it was actually because I wasn't going out and speaking to women that I was socially anxious. And it was these external choices and the internal habits that I was doing that were actually reinforcing the anxiety and depression. And once I like flipped the switch and kind of understood that, like, the emotions follow the actions I do, then I started making better actions and I started actually feeling better. And I was like, holy shit, that's all it took was for me to make the right choices. And it's really as simple as just making the right choices. That's all it is. And the next thing I wanted to say before I go into more like the practical tips of how to get yourself out of a rut is, when especially you start improving yourself, you have trained the habit of your mind for so long to be so negative and to give into instant gratification and do the wrong habits, that it's not going to be like a parallel line. You're not going to go, right, today I'm going to start improving myself, and from there you just go upwards and upwards and upwards. It's going to be a very wonky graph. Like, sometimes you're going to do really well, and then you're going to go back down, and you're going to like ingrain all these bad habits again, and you're going to instill them in your mind, and then you're going to break free of the bad habits. You're going to get to a place where you're happy, where you're motivated, you're building momentum, you're going to the gym, you're working out, blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to drop down again. You're going to go up and down, up and down. And it's like life. Like, it's literally the nature of reality that everything's flux, and self-improvement and the path to improving yourself is going to be flux as well. It's never going to be a straight line. But don't beat yourself up for this. And the philosophy I use is when I'm stuck in the ruts and when I'm in the bad places, I use this as kind of where I don't want to be. I define that as hell. So I was in a very negative state of mind yesterday. I was scrolling through social media all day, like beating myself up about my future, worrying about my finances. And instead of sitting in that for days and days, I just switched and went, right, this is how I don't want to be. This is my hell. This is if I continue to do the wrong habits, if I continue to scroll through social media, if I continue to eat the junk food, if I continue to do this is how I'm going to feel. And that is my hell. And what I do is I define my heaven. So I'm like, right, this is how I'm going to feel if I make the right choices. I go to the gym. I'm going to look shredded. I'm going to feel confident. I'm going to have the ability to articulate and flow better. All these are my heaven, what I want to aim towards, and my hell is how I'm feeling in the rut. And once you use the philosophy of like the ceiling of your potential, right up here is your heaven and down here is your hell, and the rut that you're currently stuck in is your hell. Once you can look at that and think, right, I'm at the bottom now, the only way is up, that's going to take off a lot of pressure. So kind of use the rut that you're in as a motivation and an indicator again of where you don't want to be, because this is only actually going to help you out in making better choices toward the person you want to be. And so getting on to more like the practical tips. And before I go into the practical tips, one last thing I want to say is like, be willing to talk about these things. Like the more you suppress them and hide them from other people, the more you're reinforcing the importance of things. And like, if you just let your emotions come up, you don't beat yourself up about them. You don't attach any importance to them. You just watch them leave. Watch them come up, bubble up, pop and go. Then you're not going to attach your self-image or yourself to these emotions. And this is where like meditation really comes into handy. The more you realize that like you are not everything that comes up in your mind, all these negative emotions that are happening to you right now because you're stuck in a rut, they are just flowing parts of nature and reality. They're not you. There is no sense of self that has to attach to these things. And if you can let these emotions come up, and if you can talk about them with vulnerability, and if you can speak to your friends without being embarrassed and not attach your identity to these emotions, you can actually take away the importance. So never be afraid to let these emotions come up. If you need to cry, just fucking cry. Who gives a shit? If you need to speak to someone, go and speak to someone, because the more you do these things, the more you let these emotions outpour without attaching any importance to them, the less they're going to affect you, and the more you're going to realize that like you're not actually all these emotions. These are just things that are coming up right now and are going to pass. Like everything in life, all the atoms and particles in life are constantly in flux, constantly changing. And the more you attach yourself to a concrete idea of I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm stuck in a rut, the more you're going to reinforce this illusionary sense of self that is the person who's stuck in a rut. But if you can just let go and realize that this is just something that's happening right now, and the next right now is going to be different, and the next right now after that, the less you're going to suffer, because you're not attaching some concrete identity to this problem. So onto the practical tips. Fucking mate, sometimes when I do these podcasts, like you get in the flow and you're articulating yourself, and then the next thing I know, you're like stuttering over your words, you're and an R in. So like it's a really challenging state of mind to be in, where like it's kind of like you're figuring out these problems as you go and articulate them, and it's really interesting for me to do. And it's been massive in developing my understanding of the topics I'm talking about. But like I really do kind of get stuck in that way sometimes, where like I want to get these words out and you just can't. You trip over your words. It's really frustrating. So sometimes as podcast guys, just bear with me, because I'm just going to try. I'm flowing and I'm trying to solve problems out myself as I record these podcasts. But off that tangent, onto the practical tips of what can we do to actually start getting out of this rut. And I think the mindset's really important to talk about, because without the mindset, your actions aren't going to follow. But so adopt them mindsets, really have that belief that you can change your life, and everything I've said before, really ingrain that into your brain. But at the end of the day, like without actions, nothing is going to change. So what I want you to do is, like, if you're really stuck in a rut right now and you've got no direction in life, is I want you to sit down and define your heaven and hell. And it's really interesting how, like, the biblical stories of the Bible have perfectly describe the human state of minds, and the idea of heaven and hell aren't some imaginary places. Hell isn't somewhere completely down beneath the ground, and heaven isn't somewhere up in the skies. What heaven and hell are is a place where you don't want to be and a place where you want to be. Their state of mind. And what you can do is you can utilize this to your advantage, because you can define where you don't want to be, which is your hell, and you can define where you want to be, which is your heaven. So write down a 10-year plan of what your life is going to look like if you achieve all your goals and if you start bettering yourself. And what I want you to do is sit there and go, what does a perfect day in my life look like in 10 years' time? So I want you to do this without any self-limiting beliefs. Really go into your mind's vision of, like, your mind's eye, and vision what a perfect day in the life looks like from the moment you wake up to the moment you go sleep in 10 years' time. And when you do this, you create a subconscious picture in your brain of an ideal picture, and it's a goal for you to head towards. And what will happen is, as soon as you have this goal, that's an idea planted in your brain. And this idea is going to subconsciously influence you without you actually understanding to what extent it's happening. So your mind's got this image to aim towards. And what it's going to do is it's going to subconsciously start making choices to get you there. And when this is defined and when it's really clear, you've got somewhere to aim. You know that that's where I want to be, and it's direction, it's clarity. Your subconscious is going to work for you, but you're also consciously going to make choices to get there. And I want you to define your hell. So what is your life going to look like if I continue stuck in these ruts? Like, how I feel now, if I continue that on a pathway of 10 years, what is my life going to look like? And really envision that and get into the mindset of someone who is mega depressed, mega anxious. You wake up to the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. What is your life going to look like if you're constantly stuck in ruts? And what this does is it actually hacks into kind of the human psyche, where humans have evolved to be constantly running away from things. Like, we're constantly avoiding fear, due to, like, fear has been an indicator for us to get out of these scenarios. And if you can create fear for your hell, if you can have your hell defined, and you can create, like, you look at that and go, fucking hell, I do not want to be there. Like, that sounds horrible. How I feel now, like, magnified by 1,000, that is literally incomprehensible. I do not want to feel like that. If you can create that image, you can create that vision, then what you're going to do is you're going to create fear in your body. And we are averted and we are motivated by fear. We actually head away from fear. So if you can create fear for that hell, it's going to be easier for you to make choices. And then you're going to start running towards your heaven. So that heaven is for inspiration. That hell is for you to avert from fear. And when you can look at these, that gives you the direction. You know, every choice you make is rather a choice towards that heaven, to that heaven, or to that hell. And you can really weigh up every choice you ever make now as, is it going to get me towards my heaven, or is it going to get me towards my hell? Just a quick reminder on this is, don't attach yourself to that heaven. Like, that heaven is a goal and a direction for you, but the moment you start living in that heaven and not anchoring yourself in the present moment, you're going to start causing yourself suffering, because you're going to constantly be reinforcing where you are not. You are here now. This is the only place you are. So you can make choices now to get closer to there, but be grateful and present in the moment. Do not live at that heaven, because that is actually going to reinforce more suffering, and paradoxically is going to get you closer to that hell. But have that heaven and hell defined. And once you've done this, right, you've got the heaven, you've got the hell, you need to start setting goals of how can you get towards that heaven. So that's a 10-year plan, right? 10 years time, I'm going to be this mega successful, mega confident person, blah, blah, blah. And that's where I want to go. That's my direction, my compass. How can we get there? So what are we going to do to actually get us, like, step by step towards that goal? So what I would recommend is break it down to a 5-year goal, a 3-year goal, a 2-year goal, a 1-year goal, a 6-month goal, a 3-month goal, a month-long goal, a week-long goal, a day goal, and break it down to the minute places. Like, what can I do today to get me towards that goal? What can I do this week to get me towards that goal? What can I do this month to get me towards that goal? And break it down step by step. And that gives you the clarity of, like, you know what you need to do then. There's not going to be a day where you wake up and think, right, what do I have to do today? And this is going to make the choice between good and bad habits easier, because you know that good habit is going to get me there. That is going to get me, that bad habit is going to get me towards hell. So I'm going to do the good habit. And once you break down these goals, these little goals that you're going to achieve are going to get you closer and closer. They're going to build up motivation. They're going to give you more dopamine, and they're going to build up momentum, and the compound effect is going to start kicking in. So the more daily goals you achieve, the more weekly goals you achieve, the more monthly goals you're going to achieve, you're going to create something called the compound effect. And this is kind of like the notion of compound interest, where think of it like if when you invest in a stock and it gives you 10% dividends every year, that 10% dividends is going, so you've invested £100 and you get 10% on that. So at the end of the year, you get £110, but you only invested 100. But then you invest in the next year, you now got £110, you're going to get 10% on that, which is then going to be the next amount and the next amount and the next amount. And this compounds and rolls. And within like 40 years, you can end up being a millionaire, which is just from you investing that £100. But think of like your self-improvement as that compound interest. It has a compounding effect. So every good habit you choose, every small victory that you make day by day is going to reinforce the habits of you making better choices. And this is going to compound because the more good habits you instill, the more neurological pathways you build in your brain, the easier it's going to get to make the choices. So now, like for me, for example, I started off when I was stuck in a rut with 10 press-ups a day. So I was doing 10 press-ups a day. I did that for a week. And then I found, wow, I can actually do 10 press-ups really fucking easy. And that became my new baseline. That was compounded into my new baseline. And I was like, right, I'll do 20. And then I did 20 consistently for a couple of weeks. And I was like, wow, that's really easy. Then I'll do a full workout. Then I'll go to the gym and look how the compound effects kicks in. And the results will lag behind your choices, but eventually your results will get bigger and bigger. They will snowball and you'll start making, you'll start making incremental gains in your life. But these incremental gains will result in massive, massive results. So just like trust the process, make the small wins and watch the compound effect kick in. So one thing I like to do, and is I still do this to this day, because for me, this has been the number one direct factor of if my day goes well or if my day doesn't go well. So what I'll do is like the night before I go bed, I don't know why that was so hard for me to think. The night before I go bed, I'll sit there and I'll write, what do I want to achieve tomorrow? So I'll write down, I want to wake up at this time. I want to make my bed, I want to have a cold shower, and I'll write down every action I need to make in the morning. So I only really do it for the mornings, sometimes do it for the afternoon. And then what I do is I wake up and, right, first thing, I've woke up, I've got out of bed, tick that off. Then cold shower, right, tick that off. Make bed, tick that off. Workout, tick that off. And what happens is the more you tick these tasks off and the more you go by doing your actions and ticking them off, what you're going to do is you're going to hijack the chemistry of your brain to get you motivated to do more. So we have a thing in our brain called dopamine, which is kind of like the basic way, the bro science way I can describe it is like the motivation hormone. It motivates you to do more. It gets you to take action. So what happens is when you've got this journal and you've written down what you want to do day by day, the moment you tick something off, you get a spike in dopamine, and that's going to motivate you to do the next task. And this is going to start building momentum. So you wake up, tick it off, and then you're going to feel more motivated to get into the shower. And then you get in the shower and you tick it off. And then you're going to feel more motivated to do the next task. And then all you're doing is building on the momentum and gaining more and more forward motion. So that's what I do. I like to write down the day's tasks that I want to achieve. And the moment I wake up, just start ticking them off. And this also increases your testosterone as well, which is like a really cool fact. So it's not just the increase in dopamine you're getting, but you're also getting spikes of testosterone, which is going to make you feel more energetic and more manly, really, to go out and take responsibility and achieve what you want to. So also as well, when you actually write down what you want to achieve, you're giving yourself clarity. So you're not going to get decision fatigue. Something's not going to come up and you're going to think, oh, I want to do that. Like you've got to write down what you need to do. So you sit down and you do it. And like that planning, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So that planning things for your time is going to be crucial for you actually progressing towards where you want to be. For other practical tips, and like if you're really stuck in a rut and you don't know what you want your heaven to look like, I would just start working on your health, get healthy. And this is going to be the highest ROI thing that you can ever do, because I believe 90% of the problems that we suffer as a civilization, as a society, come from a lack of energy and a lack of optimized health. And this comes through poor nutrition, poor exercise, poor sleep. So really start looking at optimizing your health, because this is not only going to make you feel more energetic to make more choices to better yourself, but it's also going to make you look better, feel better, and it's going to start actually fulfilling the good habits, because you're going to feel more energetic and you're going to start wanting to improve yourself more. So look at your diet, look at your sleep, look at your exercise. And last one is just meditation. For me, like, meditation comes at the core of all this, because when you're stuck in a rut, it is literally you're letting your emotions overcome you. All your emotions and all the feelings that are happening when you're stuck in this negative state of mind are reinforcing where you are now. They're reinforcing you to make more negative choices, which is getting you stuck in a deeper rut. But if you can meditate and become mindful, you can catch yourself doing these things. So you can actually stop in between all this negative emotions. You can go like, whoa, like, these emotions aren't me. And meditation is the whole art of meditation is realizing that you're not everything that arises in your conscious experience. And the more you can start learning to do that, you can actually dissociate away from these negative emotions, and you can start aligning yourself with your real purpose. So like, meditate and look after your health, for me, like, they're the two things that have got me where I am today, which is like, I'm recording these podcasts, I'm helping young men and women, whoever listens to the podcast, and like, I can actually flow with confidence and live a life that is not always perfect. So I struggle like everyone else. I still suffer with anxiety, depression, blah blah blah. But there's always a way out of it. For me, and I never feel like confined to negative emotions anymore. I just realize that if I'm feeling negative, these are things that are coming up in my conscious experience, and that's fine. And I can make the right choices, and I can deal with them in the right way to actually start feeling better. And I'm the conqueror of my own mind. I am the person who paths and craves out and carves out my destiny. And I think this comes through just little wins, small wins, and that compound effect kicking in. So if you're stuck in a rut, that is everything I've got to say. Realize that it's not the end of the world, and you could potentially look back at this time of your life in 10 years, 20 years, and be super grateful for being depressed, because like, for me, your worst nightmares are your biggest asset. And I went through a really bad time when I was like 20. This was like 19, 20, where I dropped out of university because I was doing a lot of drugs, and I was so chronically depressed and so chronically anxious, where like, I couldn't even speak to like my parents properly. I remember my grandparents would come around, and I'd pretend to be asleep upstairs because I'd get socially anxious for wanting to talk to them. Like, I couldn't speak to women. I remember trying to like speak to women. Always have my hands in and out of my pockets. Like, I would get really like panicky. Like, my heart rate would increase. I'd be stuttering all my words. And like, I used to work in a supermarket where I would see people come in that I knew and that I actually wanted to talk to, because I was interested in like communicating with these people. But like, my anxiety would rush over me so much where I'd just run away and hide in a different room. And like, I lived in this state of mind for like 2 years, where I was just constantly averting social situations. I was constantly suppressing my negative emotions, and I never took action on getting myself out. And that is what the rut can do to you if you don't deal with it correctly. And I'm only here now because like, I dealt with the repercussions of the rut, and I took action and took responsibility of getting myself towards what is defined as my heaven. And it's a slow process. Like, you're not going to wake up and be this mega confident, mega shredded person who's financially free. Like, it's step by step. You get there and you get there. But for me, it has been the most rewarding and satisfying journey I've ever done. And if I could just pass on this feeling of gratitude for life, how I feel now because of my younger self, to someone else, that would be my biggest asset to the world. And that's what I want to help you do. The people that listen to this podcast, I really just want you to like realize that you can change your life, and you don't have to be stuck where you are now. You don't have to confine to what society wants you to believe in. Like, you can actually just anchor down, improve yourself, and the external environment will map to however you want it. But it's all in our internal. It starts with us making the right choices and believing in ourselves and just changing our lives. So yeah, you've got full freedom and autonomy over what you want to do. And please take these steps towards bettering yourself, and realize like the compound effect, it can go either way. Like, if you start making the right choices now, that's good. And you're going to compound into a person where you're going to be incomprehensible to what you thought possible. Like, you're going to be 10 times more confident than what you thought possible. You're going to be shredded. You're going to be rich. All these things that literally graspable for you. You just need to make the right choices. But also that compound effect can get you closer to that hell. And if you're really stuck in a rut, and if you're consuming a load of alcohol, consuming drugs, if you're wanking 6 times a day, you're eating junk food, every time you fulfill one of these bad habits, that's getting you closer to that hell. And the further on the line you get towards that hell, the harder it's going to get back. And there's never a way out of it, but really be careful of like the choices you make, because each choice is a vote towards your future self. So yeah, thank you very much, people. This is really important for me, because I felt like I was stuck in a rut for so long, and I still get stuck in ruts now, but I've got better at getting myself out of them and realizing that these are just places for me to learn and grow, because discomfort is where you learn the most. So thank you very much, people. I'm actually going to start thinking about doing some coaching. So anyone listening to this podcast who is interested in like kind of wanting to change their lives, get physically fit. I'm training to be a personal trainer as well. So if anyone wants to get physical fit, if they want help setting goals, if they want help learning to meditate, like reach out to me and we'll get you on like a little like one-on-one coaching program. I'm not going to charge for any of this, because I am still like a complete novice in myself, and I don't know how I'm actually going to like fulfill the program or how I'm going to structure it. But for me, like in the next year, 2 years, I'm going to be charging clients for this sort of stuff. So I want to learn and get good testimonials, and I really want to help people now. I want to help the people who feel like the younger me. So if you want any coaching, just reach out to me and we'll like set you up on a plan. We'll do weekly calls. We'll get your nutrition dialed in, your exercise, and we'll get you making the right choices and get you start fulfilling the compound effect. So please reach out to me, because it's not just me helping you, you're helping me out massively, because I'm going to actually start getting practice at doing the thing that I really want to do, which is helping people change their lives. So thank you very much for listening, people, and I'll see you all in the next video or podcast.